You ready? Good morning. I'm glad you're here. This is faith-based blogging content, and there's some other title that I thought up several months ago and have forgotten what it is. So just to kind of get a sense of where you all are as the physical audience, and hello to our online audience. I asked this question of you too. How many of you currently have a blog that you post to at least once a month? Okay. How many of you have a blog that you can't remember the last time you posted to it? And how many of you don't have a blog at all? For those of you who don't have a blog at all, what are the things that you hope to, I'm assuming you're here because you'd like to think about starting a blog, either for you personally or your church. What are some of the things, the questions that you have about blogging? How to get started. Okay. So some platforms that you could use.
How often? How do you focus yourself? Do you try to limit yourself, be broad? Who's your target audience?
Okay, we'll get into some of that. Yes. How to be effective. Anything from online group? Everybody went to get coffee there. They're like, I get my coffee. So I'm going to do sort of a short presentation. I absolutely cannot stand presentations where the presenter reads from the slides, and then I was putting this together, I realized I'm probably going to do some of that, so I apologize in advance, and those of you, of course. Let's see. So this is just an overview about blogging. Did the mic go out? One of the things about an audience in faith-based blogging is to realize that we do not live in a world where most people have a working vocabulary of the Christian faith. The most recent Pew study, which by the way, I think Pew Forum is one of the best sources of information that you can get about discerning what an audience might look like in the internet sphere and the wider audience. If you have not gone to Pew Forum and read some of their information, I commend that you do that. But we know that right now, almost 1/4 of Americans are not affiliated with any religion at all. 1/4. That's a substantial number of the people in this country. So that means 1/4 of the audience of people that are reading blogs or on the internet have probably only attended a church for something like a wedding or a funeral. That means that they really don't understand terms like narthex or transubstantiation or epiclesis. All of words I have seen in blogs that were not focused for that narrow audience. So that does give you some sense about the fact that Christianity, as what I call a social institution, in the same way that I talk about Christianity as a social institution like Junior League, is declining. I think that it is not the social club that you belong to. I personally think that we're seeing Christianity become back to, in some way, the church. So we have fewer and fewer Americans who are associated and regularly attending church. There's a link to the Pew Research Religious Landscape. That's a great overview of just, and that will help you on some level form your audience. Remember that when you write a blog, even if you write a blog for your church, so even if you have St. Swithin's in the Swamps weekly blog, you will have people who are not affiliated with your church reading your blog if you welcome them. You'll have members of the wider community read your blog. You will have friends, if you are blogging in a way that people are inspired to read, share it on Facebook, on Twitter. Hey, there's this great blog. I'd like you to read this. There was a post that mattered to me. So you need to remember when you write your content, write for people who might not have all the insider language of the church. So I think that doesn't mean, and I've heard it said, you need to dumb down. I don't think you need to dumb down. I think you just need to be aware that not everybody uses the language we like to use. It's the difference between saying, come celebrate the birth of Christ, and come celebrate Christmas that Kyle used yesterday. So remember when you're doing that. We also know that active members of the church are not what it was 10 years ago. An active member of a church 10 years ago probably attended 3 to 4 Sundays a month. Now you're considered an active member if you attend 1 to 2 Sundays a month. So part of what I think a blog can do is to fill that space between the time that they are actually physically in the church community and create a connection on the internet and the social media church community. So how do you engage your members while they are not sitting in the 4 walls of your church? And I think those are some of the things that blogs can do, just as things to know. The church does not keep blogging trends. I know that's shocking. But these are some blogging trends from the first half, almost, of 2016 that we know in business. This one, I think, matters a great deal for so many aspects of the church. By 2020, most business customers will manage 85% of their business relationships without ever talking to a human being. I recently bought a car. I'm the type of person who buys a car once every 17 years. Before I ever went to the dealership, I went to Consumer Reports. I checked blogs. I checked peer reviews. All of those things before I ever walked in a dealership and talked to a person. I suspect, because I saw several nods out there, that that's not an uncommon trajectory. I think that will translate and is translating into church and faith communities as well, that higher and higher percentages of people will have done online investigation before they ever darken the door of your church, which is, by the way, where I'll put my plug in. A website and a Facebook page are non-negotiables for churches. And your website needs to be professionally designed or well done, because, as I tell people, most people would not have the front part of their church falling in and allow somebody who's in the parish who's occasionally done some masonry work 20 years ago to repair the front part of their church. I believe the same thing about websites. Make it valuable. So that's my bit, because people are connecting. Blogs are a way for people to connect in. One of the other things that surprised me is that customers are reporting that blogs are the 5th most trusted source of information online. That's a scary thing. It is like 5th most trusted source. But when you think about the deeper impact of that, people perceive blogs as a personal testimony. I am actually going to blog about this product. Now, maybe they were paid for it, and some of the better bloggers will say, this is a paid endorsement, or I received this item for free. But I find myself going online, listening to people talk about their experience with a product. It's a personal testimony. We should, by the way, recognize that word as Christians. Blogging is a wonderful way to make your personal testimony about the difference that your relationship with Christ has made in your life and the value of your faith community. It is a way to make personal testimony. Multiple authors are actually viewed as more informative. I think that's a telling thing if your church is going to have a blog. I think that's a different matter for an individual blog. But if you are going to have what I call an institutional blog, church, diocese, seminary, it is helpful to have more than one writer. Diversity of views, diversity of voices, people see that as more trusted. Companies who use blogging have 67% more interactions and customers than companies that don't. Translate that into the church world. Churches that blog or have access to a blog probably have substantially more interaction with people than churches that do not. And again, it goes back to that personal testimony. When I read a blog post, and I have this happen when I go to conferences, people who have read my blogs will come and they feel, and I understand that, like they know me. I do the same thing for people whose blogs I've read. I feel comfortable with them because I know something about them through their writing. 25%, I know. I saw it. And start to put these numbers together. 25% of people have never or have no affiliation to Christianity, the courage it takes for people to walk into a church that they've never been into a church, this blog in some way can give them a personal connection that they're just not walking in cold. And there's a question?
Amy asks from the webinar, how do you find your audience and what do you write about?
We are going to get there.
Awesome.
Yes. But, yes.
Associated question. How do you seek blogs? How do you find blogs you might be interested in?
I just Google. I just Google topics. I see what friends of mine are posting on Facebook on different things. I mean, I aggregate them, so I can talk about, I'll get that to later. Strategy matters for blogs. I am the poster child for how not to start a blog. I was in a church, and it was a situation, I was an assistant, where I was silenced. I did not have a voice. It was an unhealthy and unhappy situation for me. And I started blogging because I had to find a way where my voice could be heard. And so I blogged. And I didn't figure anyone would ever read it. Don't start your blog like that. Although I think it is a testimony as to how God can take a very unhappy situation and out of that, lotus grows in the mud sort of situation. But strategy does matter, and I've sort of made lots of mistakes and figured them out. So 5 years ago, shorter posts were all the rage. Now we're actually seeing that posts longer than 1,500 words get many more readers and hits than shorter posts do. That does not mean, by the way, there are exceptions to all of these rules. Rachel Hackenberg has a blog where she posts short prayers almost every day. But that's what she does. So her prayers are not 1,500 words. Thanks be to God. They're very short. They're very beautifully constructed, but that's what she does. But we do kind of know that. Most people today are reading blogs not on their computer, but on the smartphone. Always remember something that I call the three swipe rule. People will swipe their phone 3 times, and after that, they're not going to swipe anymore. So your blog post, your blog needs to be mobile friendly, but when you're writing your posts, sort of pay attention to that length. Is it going to be something, because most people, we're busy people. People are reading your blog post while they're standing in the line at Target. There are some people that are going to read it at work, but you have to in some ways earn that audience. So remember that 3 swipe rule. Images boost readership. So if you want to increase your readership, images are helpful. We're visual people. We like to see things. Caveat on images, either make sure it's yours or make sure it's not copyrighted, or if it is, if a friend took it, give cite under that. But images help readership. That to me is particularly important if you are, if you are a church. If you're institutional, to put images on your blog is profoundly important. Monday has the highest readership, so actually you would kind of want your post to go live on Monday if you were doing some strategy. Thursday has the highest number of shares. I don't understand why those are not the same day, but they are not. So if you are looking at strategically when you can post your blog, you want to post it and let it go live on Monday or Thursday. Again, exception to this rule, one of the biggest posts I ever had go viral, I posted on Saturday night at 10:30 because I was fairly certain when it went out there I was never going to have a job in the church again, so I didn't want anybody to read it. 30,000 readers later, I realized. So there's exceptions to that rule, but as generally as you're getting started, these are good things to go with. When you have a blog, you need to share it on different mediums. You need to post your link on a Facebook, so I would develop a Facebook page for your blog. Twitter, different mediums. Facebook, post it once, maybe twice a week, leave it alone. Twitter, you can actually post the link several times during the day just because of the nature that Twitter is in the medium. So you don't want to just post to your blog and go, yay, Jesus, it's done. You actually need to promote it a little bit. The thing that will get people to increase your audience to a blog is that people share. They read your blog and they go, this is great. When we did some asking, 94% of people share a post across the board, not just faith-based, business, whatever. because they think the content will be helpful to others. How many of you have shared a post because you read it and went, wow, I read a post the other day on grief and just thought it was just beautifully stated, and shared it because I thought other people would want to read that post. So that's part of how you can start to craft what your content will look like. What is it that needs to be said in the world that's not being said? What is it that needs to be said in your voice that's not being said? What can you add to the conversation about one that's going on that only your voice can add that's not being said? And will it be helpful to others? I will talk somewhat about content on that, but I'll use this time to say what is generally not helpful to others is your therapy session on a blog. I've seen a lot of new blogs under the guise of faith-based that are really not any more than people sort of just vomiting their emotional stuff onto the page. That isn't really helpful for a lot of people, so just be aware of that. And also, why are you writing? Why do you feel called to write a blog? And I think, by the way, everybody has a voice, and I think everybody has a story that needs to be told. It doesn't always need to be told in a blog. So ask yourself, why are you writing? And that why can just simply be because I feel called to write. And there's no, God's not going to give you an A on that, the answer to that question. But consistently ask yourself, why am I called to write? Why am I called to write? The basics. Remember that it is a medium for writing first and foremost. It is not a short video presentation. There are video blogs out there, and they are well done, but I am specifically talking about just writing a blog. Images, all of that is secondary to the writing. I don't care how amazing your images are. If your writing sucks, no one's going to read your blog. Decide your audience, know your audience, engage your audience, and respond to your audience. Who your audience is your decision. If you're doing a blog for your church, primarily your audience is going to be the people in your pews, first and foremost. Your secondary audience is probably going to be people that might have some relationship to your church because they attend a 12-step meeting there. Or maybe they are parents of the school that's associated with the church. Or maybe they are friends of people in your church. But that's your primary audience for a blog in your church. What is it then? What is it that your church needs to hear? What your church needs to hear is probably not what the church down the street needs to hear either. Some of the better blogs that I've seen lately for churches have been things about how to find spirituality in a crazy world, how to raise faith-based children. So these are things that are very particular to your audience in your church. The other thing I always say is remember that you are also the audience. What do we need to hear? Sometimes we think that there's some magical formula out there. I think we're all, as humans, not so different. So what is it you need to hear? What is the good news that you need to hear? Decide your audience. Your audience is not any breathing person out there who has a computer. Your audience is somebody that you decide. And know your audience. Let me tell you who I do not write for. I do not write my blog for wealthy cardinal rectors who think that the world should and the sea should open up when they enter a room. That is not my audience. If they read it, they probably hate it. Good, not my audience. Know who your audience is and write for them. I've just crossed some more dice off the list of places I would love to work. Engage your audience. When you engage your audience, that's asking them questions. In your blog, ask questions about, really? I kind of thought wow, it seems quiet there. Ask questions about what's going on in your blog. Give them done. That happens in a lot of different ways in blogs. You are handing the story to them when you're done. Let them make it their story. The best books I read are books where I find myself in that story. And when you're finished, you feel like part of you died. So you go read it again. respond to your audience. And I will put on this about comments. There's pretty equal numbers on either side as to whether comments on a blog are helpful or not. Everybody has an opinion in some way. So I've noticed fewer and fewer comments on my blog, but higher numbers of readership. However, I would invite you to go look at how Forward Movements post their forward day by day, and they post the essays and people respond to. There is a pretty lovely community on there that responds to those posts every day. Okay. And they clearly are a community, and so I think that those are interesting. Those are good things for them. So, comments in the response. I would say when you get an email about your blog and somebody emails you and has a question or says, like, thank you for what we've done, email them back and say, you're welcome. I think people, if somebody's taking the time to reach out to me, I think it's worth reaching back out to them. Yes. Mm-hmm. Same thing. I think there's some different techniques, but generally, a blog post is an essay. It's an essay. Again, I'd say there's like sign language. Yes. It's better. Don't love technology. I made a few mistakes because I think my computer doesn't work. But just again, even if the audience is your church, realize that not everybody knows them. So when you talk about Holy Eucharist, you might actually put a couple of sentences in there about your audience. When you speak about the Feast of the Visitation, I wrote a post for my congregation. I was very clear to write what the Feast of the Visitation was. This is when Mary and Elizabeth greeted each other, and John was blessed and everything. Because that really goes to show the Feast of the Visitation. Blog post, topical. Here's